And of course, there are many different types of questions. I'm not going to exhaustively list every single one, but my point is that it's worth, as a drill, as an exercise, making sure that you are properly identifying which question type you're dealing with so that you'll be in a better position to solve that. Finally, if your mistakes in the answer choices, you want to see what was tempting about the wrong answer choice that made you pick it, and what ultimately makes it wrong, and what is discouraging about the right answer that pushes you away from it, and what ultimately makes it correct. This takes a lot of time. If you are getting 10 questions wrong or more, this could take 3 to 4 hours minimum, because even if you got 10 questions wrong, that's a 170 approximately, which is awesome. But then there's still another 10, 15 questions that you guessed on or were not 100% confident in, or they very easily could have gone the other way. And so even if you're getting a 170 on your practice tests, you've got 25 questions to review or more. And 170 is top 3% of test takers, 97th percentile. Most people by definition are doing worse than that. And so you're going to have probably closer to 25, 30, 35 questions to review for every single exam that you do, which is why, as part of your study routine and in my study plans, I never have you doing exams on consecutive days, ideally no more than 2 timed exams per week. And if you're busy, if you're working, or if you're in school, especially this fall, if you're taking the exam in September, October, November, you're probably going to be in school in September, if not beyond, for the remainder of the semester, of course, overlapping with your LSAT studying. 1 exam per week is probably all you're realistically going to be able to do, which means that 1 exam, that's going to take you about 3 hours or 3.5 hours in one sitting, plus another 3.5 to 4 hours to review that exam. That's 7-8 hours of LSAT studying already, aside from any other work that you do, whether it's watching my videos, listening to my podcasts, doing more practice problems by type, using other resources, whatever it may be, reviewing weak areas. And so if you've got other obligations, 15, 20 hours a week is probably the maximum that you're going to be able to invest in your LSAT studying. And so if you're looking at my study plans, the ones I sent out recently, the ones I linked to just here, that's a lot. I ask a lot of students, and that's how they get extraordinary results. But if you can't do everything I ask for in my study plans, that's okay. Even if you do half of that or 3/4 of that, at least you have a plan of attack going forward on how to use all the various resources. Because the last thing you want to do is just take exam after exam after exam and measure your results and be happy or sad about those results and move on. The real work is not in taking the exams or doing the problems. It's in the review process afterwards. And if you're retaking, or you might have a retake in your future, don't worry about having used up all the exams ever released or all of the most recent exams released, because again, the value is not in doing the exams, it's in learning from your mistakes. And so if you're doing exams, let's say you've done everything in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and you're thinking, what do I do now? The stuff from the 50s and earlier is too old. Well, first off, the stuff in the 50s and prior is not too old. More recent is obviously better, but these are still in the modern format. They are virtually identical to the current stuff with very small changes, very small differences. And again, the value is in learning from the material, not simply to measure your results. If you haven't exhausted everything in the 60s through 80s, that's great. I would suggest saving a handful of those, minimum 3 to 5, ideally more than that, for a potential retake. Because if you're taking the LSAT in September, as I know many of you are, you still have the October and November LSATs just 1 and 2 months after that. And so it would not be that much additional effort to study for retakes in October and November as well. There's only a 4-week gap approximately in between each of those LSAT test dates. And so you've only got to stay fresh on the LSAT for another 4 weeks in order to retake it. And through nothing more than luck alone, you could do 3 to 4 points better. And maybe you'll do worse, maybe you stay the same, and ideally if you improve your understanding, you'll do even better than that. But through luck alone, there's a margin of error of 3.5 points on either end. So if just through luck alone, you do 3 to 4 points better, that could lead to thousands of dollars in scholarship money or getting into a better law school. And law schools only take the highest score. They don't average scores, even if they say they consider multiple. US News rankings only take the highest. Law schools only have reason to take the highest. This is what they do. And so there's really very little or no downside to retaking other than your LSAT registration fee and having the LSAT as part of your life for an additional 4 weeks or so. So it is well worth it, really very limited downside. And since the July LSAT is now past us, I know all of you are taking the LSAT in the fall or beyond, or you just like hearing me talk about the LSAT and you're here for the reason you have nothing else better to do. So I'm assuming you're taking the LSAT this fall, which means that it's worth taking multiple out of those test dates. If you're taking September, consider October as well. If you're taking October, consider November as well. And if you're taking November, consider taking October in addition or January in addition. There's obviously a larger gap between November and January, but the plus side there is that you have Thanksgiving break, you have winter break if you're in college, or at least you have the holidays, Christmas to New Year's, likely off from work. No, not too many other obligations. Things often slow down that time of year. So maybe it's worth considering a retake then also. Now, the question then that comes up is, well, isn't applying earlier better on average? What about law school deadlines? What about early decision? What about rolling admissions? Well, first off, early decision, I think, is not worth it for the vast majority of applicants. The key reason being that it kills your negotiation power when it comes to scholarships. Merit aid is huge in law school admissions. Very few people are paying sticker price tuition, meaning very few are paying the full price of law school tuition. Most people are getting some kind of scholarship money. And listen, if you've already been through undergrad, you already have undergrad debt, or your family does, or you just don't want to take on graduate school debt for whatever reason because, hey, money is good to keep in your pocket, right? Law school merit aid is all based on negotiating power. And that typically comes from having an LSAT score or a GPA above the median of the law school to which you are applying. If you just Google LSAT GPA calculator, you'll find on LSAT's website a calculator where you can input different LSAT scores, different GPAs, and see what your odds are like. And if your numbers are above the median for a given law school, they will likely be willing to give you scholarship money in order to woo you or lure you to their law school in particular. But if you apply early decision, that means that you are obligated to go there if you are accepted. And so that you really just lose all your negotiating power. What you want to do is ideally have multiple offers of acceptance from multiple law schools. And then you can play them off each other. Say, hey, school X offered me $10,000 a year. You're only offering me $5,000 a year. Can you at least match or ideally exceed their offer? And hopefully the numbers are even higher than that depending upon your LSAT score. And it's crazy, but even just a single point more can lead to getting a yes versus no, or getting another $5,000 or $10,000 a year or more on top of that. And so it's crazy, but there's an element of luck here, which is why, again, retaking is well worth doing. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.